Well, thank you everybody for being here once again. Welcome to the next evolution. Tonight we are going to be talking about immersive technology and artificial intelligence. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt Wren. I'm the founder of VR Chicago and the Next Evolution. I work with a lot of immersive and emerging technologies, and that's all I'm going to say about myself. So if you'd like to know more, we can talk afterwards during the networking session. But thanks again for being here. The next thing, again, for those of you who aren't that familiar with this event and haven't been here before, the Next Evolution AWE Night Chicago event series is now, always has been, and always will be 100% free to attend. We keep it that way. That said, it is not free to produce. So I'm going to keep this QR code here up for about 10, 15, 20 seconds or so while I talk about that. We do run essentially frankly, on donations. So please consider supporting the event series going forward so that we can keep this programming coming. And with that, I'll bring that QR code up again towards the end of the presentation or something. But at that point, let's just keep moving. The other thing I want to talk about, which is a big event that we're doing, this is coming up and it's actually growing significantly larger than I even initially anticipated, is the Chicago XR Summit coming up in June 4th at Illinois Tech this year. For those of you who might have been around last year at our demo day, it is something along the lines of that, only we decided to expand it significantly, and we have now partnered with just about every economic development and innovation organization in the city of Chicago. So 1871, 2112, MXD, Chicago Innovation, the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, P33, Discovery Partners Institute, AWE, XR Women, AR for Enterprise Association. I'm sure I'm missing like 10, and I'll just keep going. But anyway, it's going to be a big event. We're expecting about 500 to 600 attendees, so it'll be one of the bigger events that we've ever thrown. Again, it'll be at Illinois Tech University Technology Park on June 4th. Please check out chicagoxrsummit.org for more information about that event. It is a Next Evolution event, which means it will be 100% free. And we're going to have a lot of technology for you to try. There will be no stage presentations. Okay, with that said, we are also AWE Night Chicago. There are more than 30 AWE Nights all over the world. For those of you who are interested in going to Augmented World Expo, which will take place later in June at Long Beach, this is a discount code for anybody who wants to go. For anybody from an enterprise organization, I'm looking at you, Google, who actually wants to go, please see me and I can get you a code into the enterprise program for a massive discount, frankly. But we'd love to have you all there. And it's a really cool event. It's frankly the place to go and learn about this technology. And if you're interested in implementing it, you'll learn how to. I lost my place. There we go. There's also AWE Nights. There's also Augmented World Expo events in USA, Asia, and Europe. I'll read the dates. June 10th through 12th is in Long Beach. August 24th through 26th is Asia and Singapore, and December 8th through 10th is in Brussels for AWE Europe. And you can also find out a lot of information on awexr.com, and that's all I'm going to say about AWE. I want to give a very huge thank you to UL Solutions, who has been our annual sponsor for 2025 event series. We would not be able to run this event without them, so thank them. We're thanking them very much. And with that said, I'm going to introduce our venue sponsor, 1871.
Y'all. Hi, my name's Lydia. I'm with 1871. For anyone who's unfamiliar with 1871 or what we do, we are a nonprofit incubator and startup hub. So our goal is to help startups grow and scale their business. We do that in a variety of ways. We have programming, we have events, some of which are very cool and coming up. April 16th and 17th here at 1871, we have our Emerging Tech Summit. It's going to be features of AI and Web3. It's going to be a really neat event. Highly recommend you check it out. 1871.com. And the rest of what we do, you can also find there. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Our other venue sponsor, we do kind of move the event from here to a couple locations. So our other main venue sponsor is 2112, which is Chicago's creative technologies incubator. They do a lot with like live performance technology. We will be up there next month hosting our event on games. And with that said, I will pass it on over to our virtual host, Caroline, to introduce herself and the virtual space.
Hey everybody, my name is Caroline Dennis. I'm really excited to be here tonight for this special conversation about AI. So I work at the intersection of Web3, XR, and a lot of other technologies. And I'm really passionate about data sovereignty, about dignity preserving technologies. In addition to VR AR Chicago, I work with startups, helping them build and grow. And I'm also involved in a IEEE committee called Symphony, where we are a incubator for building sustainable smart cities. But I'm really excited to be here for this discussion. Um, I also would like to share a little bit about XR Women, and that is a community. Evo has been an integral part of that as well. And I know that some of the folks that have come into VRI Chicago, and they are a partner of ours. XR Women is a community of 1,200 women from over 60 countries. We have um, every week on Wednesday, we've met in a variety of platforms. We have a frame meeting space and world and museum. There are the XR Women Awards, which are coming up, and please let me know because we're looking for nominations for those awards because those are presented at AWE, as Matt had discussed. So we're all about collaboration and education and connection and empowering women in the XR industry. So, and I just want to say a little bit about Frame. We are in a platform called Frame VR, and you're seeing us up like the Brady Bunch, which is super fun. And that means that you can access this from your browser, from your phone, from your headset. It's a pretty fluid and flexible platform. If you are in Chicago and you have not tried this, we've said this again and again, it is so easy to use. You can create your own worlds. It's just great. So um, that is the fun thing about VR AR Chicago because we're blending all these worlds together all in one event. Okay, back to you, Matt. We may have lost audio, Matt.
You're muted. There we go. Is that better?
Better.
Excellent. So I'm going to repeat myself. Apologies for that. We have a lot of great community partners supporting these events. 2degrees.io, Independent Game Developers Association of Chicago, Envision, and Patched Reality. And we also, as always, want to thank our beverage sponsors, Revolution Brewing and System Seltzer, who make all of these events better. With that said, I do want to talk about why we're here talking about artificial intelligence. Because let's face it, there's been a little bit of a trend lately, I will say, that the fact that artificial intelligence, at least from sort of the media and the news and the hype cycle, has really sort of sucked a lot of the oxygen out of the room. Frankly, a lot of the attention that had been going to immersive technology prior to the launch of artificial intelligence has, I'll just say, you don't hear as much about immersive technology as you did in 2019, 2020, 2021, once AI and ChatGPT and things like that came out. Um, but the one thing that I do like to point out quite often is, while a lot of people think that these are sort of like technologies that are competing for interest, they're actually really complementary to each other. One of the things that we're hearing quite often is that XR technology is going to be the interface for artificial intelligence. And you're actually starting to see that already. When you start to think about how these two technologies really interplay with each other, for one thing, it would be very, very hard to do almost anything in immersive technology without artificial intelligence. AI, or machine learning at least, was used to create a lot of the original sort of image recognition algorithms, which allow things like augmented reality to work. A lot of the physics that takes place, or the physics engines that run inside game engines like Unity and Unreal, those were at least partially developed using machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence. More recently, you're starting to see AI, which I'm sure we'll talk about, or our speakers will talk about later today. You're seeing artificial intelligence in a generative fashion being used to create 3D models, being used to create images, to create virtual environments. So, in addition to the fact that you're seeing AI almost as a creation tool around a lot of the XR, and it's still being used to tweak some of the algorithms with how AR and VR work, you're also seeing artificial intelligence driven chatbots being used within virtual environments and being used to manipulate the data that's being measured when people are using augmented reality to understand the metrics and the performance. So the two technologies are very complementary. We don't like to think of them as competitive, although obviously for attention and funding dollars, there is definitely some competition there. But with that said, I'm going to let our speakers take it away and introduce our first presenter for the evening, which is Alex Kristrunas. And I'm sure I just butchered your name. Kristrunas, I got it right. Hey, cool. All right, so Alex Kristrunas is the founder and CEO of Y of AI. Please. Alex, so he's the CEO and founder and CEO of Y of AI, a book author on AI, and a professor of AI for Northwestern University's Kellogg and McCormick MBA I program. He is also a former IndyCar engineer, race strategist, and data scientist who drove winning results for teams such as Andretti Autosports in world-renowned races, including the Indy 500. You should have a microphone right there that you can just flip on and tell me when you need slides changed.
Check, check, check. All right. Welcome and great to see you all. Should I dive in? Perfect. All right. Hey, it's great to be here, everybody. Thanks for joining both virtually and in person. Nice to meet you all. I'm hoping to learn a bit more about XR myself. I don't know a ton about it, but I'm interested in it, and it seems like a very cool area of technology. Anyway, I figured I'd talk a little bit about kind of my journey with AI. It's not new. AI has been around actually since the 1950s. And I've been doing AI stuff for over 20 years. I know it seems, to Matt's point, there's a lot of buzz and hype right now around AI, and everybody's sort of talking about it. And there's a reason for that. There's been a lot of very big jumps in capabilities and technologies and advancements of what AI can do and what people think of as being AI. But one of the things you'll notice, so it was mentioned before, I'm the founder of this company, Y of AI, and AI strategy is sort of all we do. But you'll notice our slogan is turn AI chaos into clarity. And I say that not as a plug for the company, but more to tell you a bit about my background and the journey with AI and why that's even a thing. Because I have a very non-traditional background, but there is one through line throughout. So as I mentioned, I've been doing AI stuff for like over 20 years. I started my career in IndyCar racing, and I don't know how many of you are race fans. Anybody in here? Some. How many of you watch like Drive to Survive, stuff like that? That's become very popular. Okay. Some. So these cars have like 80, 90 sensors on them to measure everything you can imagine, like pressures, temperatures, forces through the suspension, displacements, both linear and angular, airspeed, distance to the ground, and you name it. And when you work in that kind of thing, it's a very frantic, hectic schedule. You're traveling all over the world on 5 different continents, back-to-back races. And even when it's not the racing season, there's normally like 18 races during the season. You're still going to wind tunnels. You're going to what's called a 7-post shaker rig. You're going to other racetracks to do track testing and so on. And in addition to all that data you have from the sensors on the car, you also have qualitative data, like the drivers are constantly telling you about the car and how it's handling and all this sort of stuff. Then you have timing and scoring data and all these things. So and other kinds of data. And so what it becomes is quite a bit of chaos, and there's no time to really make sense of it all and use it to optimize the performance of the car, achieve more wins, which is really the only goal in racing and professional sports, and really make informed decisions. And rather than be reactive, be more proactive. So while most of the teams were drowning in data, including myself early in my career, me and my team were trying to find ways to turn data into like predictive insights, like get ahead of the game and explore different kinds of technologies and techniques to really be proactive, much more proactive, and predict things and know the outcome before it happens, and then make choices in real time on the fly to kind of be at the front and ultimately win races and so on. And so this sort of set me on this journey about trying to learn more about AI and machine learning. I already had a background in advanced mathematics and physics. And so I did that. And then me and my team actually pioneered the use of AI and machine learning in professional motorsports at the time in general. But missed all my summers for way too long. I did racing for about a decade, missed life events, weddings, you name it. So got off the road, decided to go into the tech industry, worked there for a while with some SaaS companies, but then went into consulting. And during that time, ran AI and data science practice in a consulting firm that worked mainly with Fortune 500 companies and tripled in size while I was there. But I over time, I started to work way more with business leaders and decision makers. And there was a big gap out there where there were a lot of people that were practitioners talking about the how and the what of everything and less about the why of it all. Like, why does it matter? Why do you need it? Why don't you need it? Why should you be aware of the risks and figure out how to mitigate those things? And so on. And how do you again turn that like chaos, which we're seeing now? In my case, it was just tons of data and everything moving quickly. But now we see there's tons of different AI developments on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. It's hard to make sense of it all, and it's really hard for businesses and organizations to figure out like what are the right use cases, what is the strategy, how do you identify those use cases, how do you prioritize them, how do you design them, and so on. So that's really been what I've been focusing on for a long time. And sort of everything else I've done all is in that area, whether it's the business. I teach at Kellogg, which is a business school, obviously, as part of the MBAI program, which is a year and a half long full-time MBA earning degree from Kellogg program focused on AI and machine learning. But again, it's like, you know, with everything going on and the impact it's having, sort of everyone needs to have a better understanding now, not just the AI engineers and the ML engineers and the data scientists, like even as business folks, trying to better understand how this all fits in. And yeah, wrote a book on AI published by O'Reilly, again, mainly on AI strategy, focused more than the development side, even though I've spent a lot of time on the very technical side of it as well. But it's great to be here. And you know, this stuff's moving quick. It's good that you're kind of learning more about it, and I really appreciate Matt and Tom for having me here tonight. It's great to meet everybody.
Oh, stay here. No. You need that. Yeah. So stay right there. Yeah. So you get some Q&A before you get to walk away here. That's, now that we know your background, we get to ask questions about it. So with that said, I'm going to say, do you have any experience really quickly whatsoever with the XR racing simulators?
Good question. And the answer is no, but it sounds awesome. And I wish I did. I have had a bit of experience with simulators and racing. And actually, I used to work at Andretti Autosport and ran their vehicle dynamics and data science program. And I actually was in charge of all simulation for Andretti that supported a 4-car IndyCar team, but never XR stuff. I know now they have simulators that drivers go get in, and it's like got mechanicals and dampers, and try and simulate the motion of the track. But I haven't been in one.
Okay, but so you do have simulation experience, like
Tons
the
of
older simulation. Okay.
Oh yeah, with AI actually.
And so and
yeah.
that was the question I was going to ask: is how have you applied like the AI to? As obviously you mentioned
Yeah.
all the data you're getting from the actual vehicles. Have you been doing the same sort of analysis on the data from the drivers and simulators?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So kind of less so when I was doing this, it was pre those simulators. They were sort of like starting to build them, but they weren't launched yet, and teams weren't yet using them. Now they are, and they pay a lot of money, by the way, they to book time on the simulator. So what we did at the time is we actually, me and my team, we created software essentially that could generate tens of thousands of simulations. So the picture this, right? There's so many different kinds of tracks in a racing schedule. There's short ovals, super speedways, road courses, street courses, and so on. So, and on these cars, they're so infinitely tweakable. You can change everything under the sun: aerodynamic settings, suspension settings, tire stuff, you name it. So what we did is we create programs and dynamic simulations where we can run tens of thousands of simulations for a given car and a given track and given conditions combination. So even different wind and air pressures and everything. And then use the data created by the simulations to then train machine learning models to be able to predict for any given car setup for that combination of track, car, and conditions, what would be the lap time, let's say, what would be the top speed of the car, and so on. So we could figure out which settings of the car would result in the fastest car possible. So that was one of the ways we did that. So we had models to
Essentially AI-based digital twins, and you were using AI to test them.
exactly. Yep. And then also I did a lot of stuff with AI to do predictive race strategy. So I was always a race strategist as well throughout my career. I'd be at every race in the pits at the timing stand. And the race strategy, essentially you're trying to figure out in real time, when do you pit, how much fuel to put in the car, what aerodynamic wing angle changes to make, what tires to put on, what tire pressures, and you're coaching the driver on the radio as they're driving on like what tweaks they can make in the cockpit as well. And you also have up to 30, like if it's Indy 500, which I did many times throughout my career, you have 32 other cars that are all running a strategy as well. So you're trying to figure out all those things for your car, but also what your competitors are doing and trying to like get to the finish line first and win, even if you're not the fastest car on the track, which is where the strategy piece comes in. So like also used AI and machine learning to build predictive tools to try and predict scenarios and almost game out what could happen in the race and then make decisions on everything I just explained based on that.
All right, so last question, and then we'll get to some other speakers, and you'll come back up for the Q&A from
Yep.
everybody. So one of the things that we've dealt with for a lot of years in the XR space is executives just not really understanding the value, not understanding what it could do, what it couldn't do, following the hype, and not necessarily understanding the reality. Getting excited about something that looks really cool but may not actually deliver a lot of value, and sort of missing out on some of the things that are really valuable that they could do today.
Yeah.
What are the parallels you're seeing for that when it comes to talking to executives about AI? Because obviously there's a ton of hype right now, and I'm sure there's also a lot of people who are believing that it can do things that it can't do, and ultimately missing out on the things that it can.
Yeah, I mean, I love that question. It's actually like in the name of my company, why of AI, right? Like, because at the end of the day, it's really about the why. It's the outcomes, the results, the benefits, the value, and different, executives and business leaders measure impact or results differently. Sometimes it's ROI. If it's purely like a monetary focus thing. It's like some sort of ROI measurement or something. But sometimes it could be around efficiencies or it can be around happier customers because happier customers can lead to revenue growth too, right? And lowered retention and all that. I will say that um, when I talked about that through line throughout my experience, that was there. It was always this focus on the why because I worked so much with executives and decision makers and business leaders, where I realized like it's like know your audience thing, and so to put it in the example of AI specifically, let's say some company or executive is trying to figure out how to reduce customer churn. At the end of the day, they honestly don't give a crap whether you build a classifier using naive Bayes, logistic regression, neural networks, support vector machines, blah, blah, blah. Irrelevant. The only question is, does it or does it not reduce customer churn and by how much? And how much will it cost me to invest in it? And how quick can I see some of those results, right? It doesn't matter how you get there. It's like the results. So I think it does matter if you're the ML engineer or the AI researcher or the data scientist for sure, but the executives, it's the result.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. And at this point, thanks. Yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Caroline. Yeah, please. And I'm going to hand it over to Caroline. Real quick, just so you guys know, there was a little, sort of a last minute change of we were supposed to have 2 people here in person, 2 people virtual. One of our in-person presenters, due to some, I'll say, last minute emergencies, had to switch, but he is here. He'll be presenting virtually. So Zhao Shen will be virtual instead of in person, but he is here. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Caroline. Hello, Caroline.
Hi there, Matt. Well, excellent. That was really interesting. I'm excited to get into more cross-connecting of the conversation and questions. I would like to introduce Doug and Doug Smith. Doug is from Columbus, Ohio, and he works with organizations globally to integrate VR and immersive tech into training and education programs. He actually led the world's largest VR deployment in education for the Kentucky Department of Education with more than 2,450 headsets, which is a large installation. So we're really excited to have him here tonight to speak about AI through the education lens. Doug, welcome to the program.
Thanks so
Hey,
much. Glad to be here. And
I'm
thanks. I
gonna,
am in Columbus, Ohio. And
hey, Caroline and
uh,
Doug, can you guys hear me?
yeah,
Yes.
I gotta pause you guys for like 2 minutes, just because there's something messed up with the presentations, and we don't have Doug's slides right now. So
Okay.
we will get them in a second. Tom,
That's fine.
thumbs up, thumbs down. Would it make sense to go to Zhaoshen first? Okay, so we're gonna go to Zhaoshen. Doug, we will come back to you.
sounds good. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right. And Matt, do you want to take over on that one? Or do you
I
want?
I should do that. Let me give me a second. I forgot
Yeah.
I'm doing his introduction. So, apologies for that. Again, some last minute lovely technical and logistical difficulties. Zhaoshen Zhang is the CEO of FinTech for Good and the co-chair of AI 2030. He is on a mission to build and scale responsible innovation for a better world. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Zhaoshen.
Thank you very much, Matt. And as you mentioned, I was so excited to be there in person, but I shared with Caroline and others and my daughter. I was 4 hours in the doctor appointment, which is just it's just not possible for me to be there in person. But this virtual experience just is so exciting and. At the beginning I was so mad at myself that I couldn't be there in person, but I learned so much and in having so much fun using this virtual platform. And thank you again for the experience. And one thing I want to mention is really um, for FinTech for Good, and then I launched it in 2017. With at that time, that's with the goal to just through incubation, acceleration, and the building blockchain and other emerging technology-based startups, and with the goal to address the sustainable development goals. Because I used to work for World Bank, United Nations, and then SDG or sustainable development have always been one of the core thing in my career. And I saw the power of blockchain, and so, got so excited, and so let me just help innovators, entrepreneurs to build it. And in between that, I have the opportunity to just join the AWS, the leading the public sector financial institution vertical. And there that I had the opportunity to um, uh, really interact with all the emerging technologies because I shared with the group virtually that because I love all the emerging technology, and I do think that by combining the power of all emerging technology, and our customers can really solve the problem, and then in the best way. And so that's why I defined my group's strategy as helping our customers to managing assets, managing risk, managing stakeholder, managing data, and each one of them really talking specific on one emerging technology. I had an opportunity to work on metaverse, AI, blockchain, and cloud computing for sure. And after that, I went back to the startup space and launched the AI 2030. And the goal of AI 2030 is really to mainstream responsible AI. And while everyone is crazy about AI, and then my goal is that help folks enterprises to understand the risk, and also to just while harvest the innovation, while also mitigate the risk, and also make sure that AI is delivering benefit to humanity, and rather than to pose risk to the humanity. And the way how we do that is really through creating this global movement. Within 16 months, that's we are able to just grow a membership base from zero to over 2,000 members. And they are across 18 countries, and many of them have very similar background with me, working in a big tech, and on a daily basis, and deliver emerging technology based solution, especially AI based solution to customers. And we see the risk of the technology, and then we care about it, and we want to just do something about it. And then this is the group coming together, and then we do three things. And number one is that we continue to build the membership, and where that's we look into how to empower each other to just take on responsible AI leadership. If people, don't know about it, don't care about it, don't know, care about, don't know what to do about it, and also if they want to do something about it but don't know where to find the tools, where to find talent, and then that's all what we do. And to educate, to build tools, to make tools easily to be available, and um, the reason why we think this is very important is that also if you just look at AI 2030 as an organization's name, we think responsible AI is urgent, and by 2030, and we if we don't do anything, and by 2030 it might be already too late. We as humanity enter into a stage where there's a tipping point, there's no way back. And or if there's a way back, the cost to humanity is too great. So we need to just do that later. I will explain what do we mean by 2030, what are the goals and all that. And another point of that is, when people talk about responsible AI, and I talked to many of the corporate CXOs and on AI or responsible AI, and I heard a lot that people, there are a number of myths, and which are number one is that if we do it responsibly, naturally that's it'll be it slow us down, and that will just cause our progress, and cause the customer experience and all that. um, the truth is that doing it responsibly can protect your customer and protect your brand, and also can potentially do it in the right way without correcting in the future. We all know in AI that's learning is easy, but unlearn itself is very difficult. If you don't do it responsibly, and if you want your AI to unlearn, that you will just cost a lot more money or dollars if you compare that to doing it responsibly. Just broadly speaking, that the last slide, that when we just talk about the global scale, and from McKinsey's report that by 2030, and then they project that there are $13 trillion of GDP will be impacted by AI or generated by AI. And of course, if different consulting firms are giving different number, but each firm always the number is definitely over $1 trillion. And among that $1 trillion, if you see that, and then they call something as externality or transition cost and all that, that itself amount to $7 trillion. And as we can see, broadly speaking, and then that $7 trillion is one way or another, it has something to do with responsible AI. So the message there is that responsible AI is also a $1 trillion business. So that itself just say the scope and also the scale of the work. Next slide, please. And so when we started to trying to say, hey, our goal is to mainstream responsible AI, and the number one question I got is always what do you mean by responsible AI? And so this is how we started, when we have not 2,000 people but just 20 people, and we started to define for AI 2030 what is responsible AI, and how differentiate is our responsible AI framework with others. And we interestingly we come with our unique proposition, because number one, we are not government, and we are not corporate, and we are not international organizations. We are some bottom up initiative, and individuals, professionals, AI experts who care about it, want to do it in the right way, so we can be more free, about what is all our framework coming up. We came up with our framework in the way that what we as experts in the space think the right way to do it, so we don't need to compromise as a government, or we don't need to compromise as a corporate, and then it's really free from our mind. And there that we come with 6 pillars and make AI transparent, accountable, fair, safe, secure, sustainable, and privacy preserved. Each one of them are dealing with some fundamental human rights or development related angle. And we take example, and a lot of responsible AI framework don't really include the accessibility part. But if you just look at AI model training, that by 2030 occupy over 6% of greenhouse gas emission. And naturally, that if we don't address it, and if nobody really just push for it, and then that itself could just jeopardize energy security for many, and make many of who are don't have energy access postpone the time where that they may just be able to access to electricity and all that. And similarly, that's privacy preservation, accountability, and a lot of them are very important, or heavily related to some of the fundamental rights for humans, like privacy, and like the ability to know, and the transparency and all that. Next slide, please. So the reason why we call ourselves as 2030, and also we want to have the goal mainstream responsible AI, we have to just share with our community what do we mean by mainstreaming, and how do we measure our success. So these are the goals that we define for ourselves. And by 2030 we developed 9 goals, and each goal just talking about the 6 pillars, and we cannot work on all the goals all together. So by in 2025, that's we are working on the implementation of 3 goals, and we're still just doing consultation, getting input to improve the other goals. And the 3 goals that's which we are working on. Number one is by 2030, that we want to empower over 100,000 individuals to take on responsible AI leadership through training and create 50,000 jobs. And that itself, we have a certified responsible AI leaders program, and where that we provide training on this topic, trying to enable many more industry leaders who really know how to do AI responsibly. And we currently working with many universities, in specifically, Purdue University, Washington University, and quite a few universities in different countries, try to scale our impact that way. The second part is that we try to address the
Joshin, I don't.
fairness.
Hey,
Yes,
Zoshin. Yeah,
I'm just gonna.
we have to wrap up in just a second here. Sorry about that. We're a
of
little over
course.
on time.
Yeah, not a problem. And the second goal is really on the fairness part, and we want to just define a goal by 2030, and at least 50% of data for AI model training coming from diversity data. We have the AI 2030 data challenge. The last one is really around the interoperability of AI governance. And then through our AI global regulation index, we try to help government to understand how to just define, regulate AI in a way which don't create silos. Those are some of the core things that we are doing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Zechen. There's going to be a lot more time at the end for questions. I think I'm going to go ahead and I'd like to go and introduce Doug. And then following all of these, we're going to have a little bit more deep dive into questions. But amazing, amazing.
Hey,
Thank you
Caroline,
so
give me
much.
1 second. I just want to test the slides because they were updated live while I was doing this. So give me a second.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Give me a second.
We're gonna get you there, Doug.
Well, listen, you guys are sending me a storm from Chicago to Ohio here, so I'm just a matter of time before everything goes
Oh
haywire.
no.
Looks like
Appreciate that.
I see Doug. I see Doug. All right.
Oh, great. Great. Hey, thanks everybody. Appreciate the time. You can jump into the next slide, or the first slide rather. And a lot of this is going to be a little bit of the video of some of the content that we've created using AI and with the use of AI. A little bit about our company. You can actually go to the next slide. A little bit about our company. We've been around about 20 years in the training education space here based in Ohio. Um, One of our founding advisors was actually a Turing Award member in 1995. So he's been doing the AI thing for a long time, and he's still doing his AI thing over at Carnegie Mellon as a one of their leaders over there, and a global leader in AI. Of course, we used that early on with training education to really try to figure out how to incorporate AI into education. And for 10 years, the founder did do that, and the advising founders did do that. Fast forward to virtual reality and immersive technology and mixed reality coming out about 10 years ago, they decided to spin off and create content in virtual reality for training and education purposes. And they started with their own students, thinking like engineering and project management for construction, things like that, and then expanded into nursing and medical boards, and helping individuals prepare for those exams and licensure tests. And that really worked out well. So the past, 8 years or so, we've been devoted to, we've got about a team 60 or so globally, and we develop content for for training and education using virtual reality and mixed reality. Next slide, please. And like was introduced a minute ago, we did deploy the largest virtual reality installment in the history of the world for education and training, and that was about a year ago or so. So I've got some really interesting data on that if anybody's interested in learning more about that. But really focusing on workforce development, and this is a puppy. That puppy there is named Harry. He is our CEO, our chief emotional officer at our office. He is a real puppy. Next slide, please. And that is Harry, the puppy, recreated using AI. So not only are we taking AI, features and functionalities that already exist out there off the shelf, but we're actually creating AI models to develop. Internally, at least for now, to develop our own models that we can then take those models and then create other content with those models, and using AI to script and to create content and within the 3D modeling, and even outside of that. So if we can go ahead and share the video, I'll explain a little bit more as we kind of talk through the video here. So is the audio playing over there? It doesn't have to play. I can talk over it. That's no problem.
It is.
Okay. Okay.
We're not hearing any audio in the virtual space, but it sounds like you can hear audio, Matt.
Given the symptoms of persistent abdominal
We
There
pain
we
got it
go.
now.
and absence of fetal movements for 3 days at 30 weeks gestation, there
So
is an
I'm going to
urgent
talk
need
over
for
this a little bit,
hospitals to support
but
the
you'll get the
process.
idea once you
Immediate
see what's going
assessment
on. So
with
this is for Ohio
frequent
State Medical
ultrasounds to
Center, Ohio State
evaluate
University
fetal
here in Columbus.
well-being and for clinical
We were
efficacy.
doing a prototype.
Depending
Everything you
on
see, we
findings,
created in AI using our own internally created AI generator, the models, the environment, and then we took AI like ChatGPT, for example, and integrated it into the conversation, so it becomes a conversational model. So not only am I talking, this is me, real perspective of first person perspective of me wearing the headset, talking to these AI avatars. I'm having real conversations with them where I'm trying to trick them in the system. And then you saw the patient in the first video. I'm talking to that avatar in AI. And then I'm actually coming over here to my mentor, who's the doctor, who's listening to the conversation. And then I'm asking the doctor, how should I respond in this situation? What you're looking at now, which we do a lot of, is soft skills development in AI, because that's a little bit easier than some of the hard skills, which we're getting into developing, and doing like interviews, and how to react in different scenarios, and you can really build out some fascinating, realistic scenarios in that situation. This is our AI tool that we've created. It's in beta right now for the public usage. Really cool, so supposed to be user friendly, and I think it is. I'm not a AI guy. I didn't come from this background. My background is education, so I can come in here and I'm kind of the guinea pig test pilot. Like, hey, Doug, if you can work on this and not struggle with it, then hey, we know it's probably ready for public consumption. So this is
Download
just kind
products.
of showing
Cell
you
division sells
working through a
duplicates to
process
create new
of a
cells.
cell, for
Response to
example,
stimuli.
that you
Cells can
create.
respond
And
to
this AI
signals from
person
the
here
environment. By
is
understanding
talking, giving
what
an entire lesson,
cells,
and everything you see we
better
created
appreciate
in AI with
the of life
tools that
and the
we've
intricate
created in
processes
house.
that sustain it. Know the components of the animal cell. Cell membrane, cytoplasm, nucleus, mitochondria, ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, lysosomes.
And we can also create 360 videos and images, as you've probably seen with image creators and things like that in AI. We could do the same thing with 360 image creators. And so what we do with that is take the 360, maybe build hotspots around it, maybe build some scripting around it using AI. This was a call center. One of our customers wanted to show, pre-screening employees potentially who wanted to learn what is a call center and what does it look like and what does it feel like to be there. Now we are developing more of the hard skills. This is what you're looking at here, where our early days were creating things like construction, training, and how to drive a skid steer, for example. That's what you're looking at here. And now we're taking those models and we're kind of repurposing them using AI, where we're recreating everything using AI tools that we've created and being able to spit out a finished product like that. If you want to go to the final slide, so you can see, just kind of checking off the list here, some of the things that we've talked about, some of the things you can do with AI. You can, develop training content. That's pretty obvious. I think a lot of people are doing that just kind of an enterprise level right now. How do you, use AI to your advantage to make training processes easier? You can actually develop assets. Some off the shelf models already exist. We've created some tools to develop our own assets internally. At some point, those will become more public facing and available to the public to license and to use and things like that. We're just not ready for that yet. It's all in beta, but we're having a lot of fun doing it ourselves, and then being able to integrate environments and training and all the AI things that we create and assets that we create into those environments and into those processes. The next kind of hurdle that we're trying to jump over is definitely that hard skill. How do you take actual objects and like tools and put things together? How do you build a house, for example, in VR, but using AI to get there? So a lot of things that are being pieced together right now. The next 6 months is very exciting. The roadmap and the technology that we're creating and everybody else in the world is creating. If you get a chance to go to AWE, I will be there. I'll actually be one of the track hosts for AI in XR. So a lot of initials there. But appreciate you listening today, and happy to answer any questions later.
Fabulous, Doug. Thank you so much. I'm really interested if you can share a little bit more about you talk about some of the challenges that you are now looking at for hard skills. Can you expand on that a little bit and maybe share a little bit about more about what are some of the challenges that you're seeing as you're building AI into experiences and would love to have you unpack that a little bit. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. I'll take just a minute to explain what my development team has been saying to me, because again, I'm not a developer, or programmer, or AI person, but can certainly understand their frustrations. And we're working through it. With when it comes to avatars and people, those of you familiar with Unity and those tools that are out there for graphics, there's a lot of rigging involved when you're talking about animating people and getting them to understand how to connect text and verbal text is being communicated and have that sync up with the actual animations that are going on with people. But now that's been kind of figured out. But now when getting in, and so you can do a lot with that with soft skills. But now we're getting into into the hospitals, and there are a lot of variables with every single activity. So yes, you could start with things that are standardized, like safety for OSHA 10, for example. There are things that are very much standardized, and we have a lot of those assets already. But once you start to get into training activities like building a house, or you're manufacturing a widget at a factory, there are a lot of variables there. And so our team is trying to kind of do some predictive analytics on what are the most commonly used activities, for example, first, because that's lowest hanging fruit and broadest stroke. But there could be infinite number of variables to any particular physical activity that you're doing for workforce education. So we're just trying to narrow that down, maybe even use AI to do some of those predictive analytics to understand what sequence of events in that training makes the most sense to then sell it out. Off the shelf is typically where we're going with this off the shelf kind of content that anybody could use. Of course, we do custom development for anybody, and we can create anything. Your imagination is the limit there. But when we're trying to talk off the shelf products for a little bit more consumable, a little bit cheaper price, and ready to go.
Awesome. I wonder about how do you see the transitioning towards how people gain to connect with credentials? Because I know that in the training world and workforce development, that's always been a big challenge is to be able to have accessible, interchangeable, identifiable, verifiable credentials so that someone who's taking that training, are you collaborating with those as you're developing these things, or what kinds of things are you hearing from some of the partners and some of the clients that you're talking with as they are developing that to try to make the case, the ROI case?
It is. You're exactly right. And it comes from top down. It can't be bottom up when you're talking about credentialing. That's something I think everybody in the immersive tech world has struggled with a little bit. But I think we're there. I was just in DC at the National Workforce Board Association this weekend, and that's exactly what they're talking about. How do we get immersive technology? Web AR and Web XR and virtual reality headsets and everything. How do we get that content accredited? How do we get it part of the credentialing pass? I think the first step of that, and when I say that, I mean the next 12 months. I feel that's the case, that we're going to have pre-credentialing programs, training programs, that then lead to an in-person test or an in-person assessment or something on a physical piece of equipment. But you can get, in my opinion, for what I've seen, probably 60 to 70% of that confidence and learning level accomplished in virtual reality or even WebXR before you ever step foot in an actual physical training center. So I think it's coming. I think the federal government's going to be the one driving that through OSHA first of all, and then you're going to have the unions and the trade labor organizations who are going to be driving that as well. And we're starting to see those talks kind of finalize right now, even.
Right. One last question for those companies that are hesitant on adopting AI. What's the one key kind of benefit that they may not really see or that might not be um, accessible to them to really grasp as you're talking with potential um, client partners?
Yeah, and this is a great question. I always say this when I'm talking to even potential customers. When's the last time you've seen your employees in training on fire? Not literally, but don't, on fire. They're ready to do it. They want to do it. Um, it falls back to engagement. I think it's a hard thing to quantify, but you are going to get engagement when you have these pieces of equipment ready to go and you have the right training and content in there.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. That'll be great. Well, looking
Thank you.
forward to more of the conversation. And Zhao Chen, we have lots of questions we want to be asking you as well. So um, back to you, Matt.
Actually, at this point, we are going to Evo.
Oh yes, Evo. Sorry. Okay. All right. Well, I'm thrilled to have Evo joining us here today. Um, we had a chance to chat a little bit at the beginning of this before the program started about all the cross collaborations that are around AI and XR. And just to give you a little background about Evo, she's made and consulted for XR releases, has written and made works in cinema, web, TV, and film, has worked in radio on the air and designed games and challenges for people around the world to participate in large scale social campaigns together, raising millions and building awareness of key causes. She's currently vice president of the board of the xrguild.org. And if you want to learn more about that, we can share some information about that. And she leads what's called the meta traversal portal crawls and related public work on emerging XR designs for creators using a mix of traditional and new media methods. So there's a lot there,
Oh, yeah.
Evo, but I'm excited to have you join us tonight. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Caroline. It's great to be here with you. I Great to be here with all of you, by the way. I am coming to you today from California. I am in the midst of managing what will soon be nearly a cross country move, but it's great to meet all of you. I run a media studio called Reality Craft, which I started during the pandemic as a way to bring together my love of world building and design and concept development with this immersion space in AI and XR. So I've been in XR for 20 years in various forms. It started by jumping in to be a part of the Metaverse Roadmap in 2005 and being a virtual worlds creator, going back to the early Second Life days with nonprofit communities, with government, doing that work for State Department and the White House, and really figuring out how to unlock the capacities of virtual spaces like the one we're in here to do this kind of mixed reality event. So I've been a creator and producer for these kinds of events now for 20 years and have worked with people all over the world to figure out how are we going to bring together the president and the diplomat and the community to have a conversation and work together on something meaningful. So, all of that is to say, I love helping to unlock challenges using the immersive, the interactive, and the procedural, the generative. Everything that we think of now as AI includes all of the amazing data work that you've seen from our other speakers today. It also includes the work that many of you are doing in AR, VR, XR development, whether that relates to computer vision and pass through, that might be sensors and haptics. Obviously, there's so many different use cases of these technologies. I tend to do the strategy work and the early stage development, and then I'm also a producer. So I wrote a book called Prompt Craft. That would have been 2 years ago now. I'm working on the second edition, as well as an update to a book called Reality Craft. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but all you need to know for now is that I help people guide the inquiry process. So I've been doing that particular work for about 10 years since doing my graduate work at Singularity University and forming an ed tech company that was really thinking about how do we unlock AI in media to help guide our lifelong learning journeys and to guide our lives in a way that helps us be more effective, but also to be more good at being human, to be good at connecting, creative, not replacing our critical thinking or our creativity, but augmenting it in the best possible ways. So, next slide, really quick. You can go and see my work at evo.ist. I just had a film picked up for a festival last weekend. I just got a green light today on a new series that I'm developing using generative media for a multiverse animation series that'll be on television. So, it's really a great time to be exploring the edges of these spaces. I've been doing AI R&D in various forms for 20 years. It is what first drove me to want to come into immersive spaces because I needed a place to figure out. I needed a lab. I needed an experimentation zone. And today we have places like Frame to come and experiment. We have obviously the great work that Doug's doing in technology and specifically in teaching people how to use our tools effectively in these spaces. we have a number of trends that we're tracking, right? So if you're thinking about training, that is one of the biggest trends we're tracking in XR and AI integration right now, because so much of what we're unlocking in XR is the ability to learn faster and to use our learnings, our discoveries, our data in order to inform and improve. So that is where iterative feedback loops very quickly build something that can be useful for any form of education at all. Um, Inquiry based development, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I guide a process that's sort of unlocked within the reality craft framework. And it's really designed to help teams ask questions together. It doesn't matter if you're a PBS producer working on a documentary and trying to figure out if it's okay to use AI for historical simulations and recreations, or if you're trying to figure out if it's okay to use an LLM if you're facing the public in a way that it might be iffy or feel maybe unethical. So I do help teams figure out whether that is going to be appropriate and then to build a process where they can work with the public or with their team to do that together. So, um, I think some of you got to see my colleague at XR Guild last week, Avi Barsev, last month. And you're welcome to plug in if ethics and safety, all of the work that we're trying to unlock for developers and figuring out how to do this work transparently and appropriately. Um, you can check us out at xrguild.org. Next slide. So, as I mentioned, I have a framework that I use in my consulting work. It is designed to maximize what we do in AI as part of our XR stack and to use the right tool at the right time in the right workflow. Understanding that you often have many tools to choose from. Not every tool is going to be right for every audience or every use case. And so, some of that work is asking the right questions about what you're trying to achieve, how you want to get there, what are the appropriate consent elements that you need to unlock with your community, and how do you want to talk about it together. So that's a bit of a dynamic interplay. I tend to do that in workshops and other types of interactive sessions, both as a consultant and as a producer. It's a conversation, and it's something that is unlocked over time. So I do a lot of generative media production, building skyboxes, building 3D assets, building videos. It can take sometimes 1,000 assets to get to one finished product. And so this sense of um, helping to understand the process that you are undergoing together, it's not automatic. Even if you're automating some piece of a workflow, it's not the same as being fully automatic. And that's really important to understand where humans need to stay in the loop and where human insight is really important. So I tend to double down on human insight as a part of a generative process. Not every AI developer is going to approach it the same way, but that's how I approach things. I teach prompt craft as part of my work. And so it's how to develop the right prompts and the right language, understanding how these tools work with our language, what we're asking for to produce something together. Next slide, real quick. And I'm going to let you see a little video later on, but we can hold that till the end. But this kind of work, whether you're thinking of generative creativity and like images and videos or world building, it's really for everyone. I work with people as young as 9, 10, 11, 12. Obviously, once you've been in a game and you have an idea, you have a sense of how these things might need to start coming together. So this is really something that everyone can do. Almost anyone can come into frame, build a world, start to figure out how to use an AI assistant in that world, and really experiment, whether they're trying to figure out how to unlock something in education or in research or in some other arena, right? Therapy, medical, wellness, you name it. So I tend to work with folks and figure out how to design the interaction and design the capacities, whether you're thinking about information architecture, uh, how are you going to deal with your metadata? How are you going to deal with portability? What Caroline was talking about earlier with our portal crawls, this is something we've worked on quite a bit over the last 4 years so that we can walk from one world to the next and that interoperability means the same thing somewhat, whether you're in frame or a different platform. So, building that sense of cohesiveness for something that feels like a real metaverse instead of a bunch of sort of software things that are kludged together, um, that to me is the future of the public commons. And that's the space that I want to make sure is safe and appropriate and awesome for everyone. So, figuring out how we work together to create that is why I come to hang out with people like you. So, I think we're just about wrapped. You can go to the next slide if you need to, but I think at this point, I want to bring us into conversation. And I like to be someone who is both human and inquisitive and inviting play. So I want to encourage all of you to think about whatever you're trying to achieve, whether it's experiments in AI or bringing these tools into your stack and in your workflow. Really be inquisitive and think about how you can ask these questions playfully together. So, from simulations in smart cities to let's go make games that heal people. Let's have a great conversation.
That's fabulous, Evo. Before we open it up to the larger set of questions, I want to ask about what I was thinking about as you were describing your process was iterative. And one of the things that I've found in the technology space is that it really is very iterative, whether it's agile, team building, or other things. Can you share a little bit about how do you translate that into the work you're doing in prompt craft, and
Sure.
how
And
do you
actually, there was
consider that?
one more slide there, and I will. You can go ahead
Oh,
and put the
sure.
last
Oh,
slide
sorry
up
about
really
that.
quick. That's okay. It's the one that I think they just passed there. Um, when I think of these iterative feedback loops, it starts with asking a question, perhaps coming into dialogue or running an experiment, and then coming back and seeing, did it work? Do we want to improve? Do we want to try something different? Like in the generative space, that's often a re-roll. Like, let's try and generate again until we see something we like
Yeah. Yeah.
in image generation. So I tend to think of it as lots of loops that you're making together, almost like a square dance or some sort of like choreographed dance. And the work itself is almost like jazz, you're improvisational, you're kind of flowing with it, and you're like, hey, what happens if we add this word or this thing? And how do we have this effect on each other that creates a style or a tone or an energy that's unique, right? Because that's what I'm often looking for, is something that doesn't feel like anything I've ever seen before.
Wow, that must be a powerful process. And I guess since we're talking about the integration tonight of AI and XR, can you share a little bit about where you're seeing the not really the wins, but what are the peaks that we need to surpass in order to make that a more integrated process in the building, in the collaborating, in the creation of things? Are there some hurdles that you think are really are your next sort of big things that we need to tackle?
Certainly, public access to tools that are robust enough to develop a plan together. And some of that is having these tools at point in libraries as well as in your co-working spaces. And so having public design labs in places where the public can work together, not just on your mobile phone, but also perhaps coming together in public spaces too. I, for example, like to mix Gaussian splats or scans that I would take on my phone with generative media. Currently, that requires a big NVIDIA kind of big old desktop to run. Over the next year or two, we're going to start seeing that happening on our mobile phones. That's going to change everything when it comes to disaster response and housing and being able to rebuild quickly after someone has lost their home, for example. So this is where I'm excited to see the technologies come together into useful public applications for the consumers as well as for enterprise level experiences.
Fabulous. Thank you, Evo. Okay, Matt, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Before we get to the Q&A, which I will get to in a second, Evo, did you want us to show your video?
We can throw it at the end. Let's go ahead and have a Q&A first.
Okay. So give me a second and let me advance. It's talking about how Q&A is going to work. I see Shayla's getting our microphone. Excellent. Um, so if we have questions in the physical space here, just raise your hand. I will try to keep sort of in my head the order in which hands went up. So just make sure that I've seen you raise your hand. Once I've seen you kind of nodded, whatever, you see that I recognized it, you don't have to keep it up. But Caroline will let me know if there are hands up in the virtual space. And then Tom will let us know if there is a question coming in from, he'll actually probably just text me. Yeah, Tom? He'll text me if there's a question that comes in from the live stream. But with that said, yeah, Alex, you got to come up on stage and have a microphone. Sorry, I forgot. I got to have you come back up while we're doing that. Thank you, Tom. But with that said, so again, if you're in the virtual space, there is a button for you to raise your hand. If you raise your hand, Caroline can let me know. I'll try to see it if I see it, but ultimately, we're going to see who's got the first question. And I see one right up here in the front row. So he's going to go first. Yep.
So, I mean, historically with VR, AR, you've relied on 3D engines like Unreal and other ones. Oh, yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Going forward, do you think that the logical conclusion of using generative models or diffusion models where the rendering or the modeling or the representation of the physical space becomes inherent to the output of the general model as opposed to relying on the engine themselves? Does it make sense? The question makes sense?
I'm going to go with, I'm not actually sure what you're asking, so no.
All right. So instead of relying on like an Unreal Engine or Unity, the model itself produces the imagery that represents and executes against the physical interactions within the world. So the ultimate logical conclusion is like instead of relying on the intermediary of an engine to do that, the model itself will produce output that is the direct manifestation of what the environment is supposed to be.
Yeah, you're Bill Gates in this thing from 1975. The answer is yes. Eventually, to your question, I know all my teams and any team that's doing development, they're still relying on those engines.
I'm going to ask if Eva wants to jump in at all too, because I know you do have a little bit of experience, I think, on what he's asking.
Yes, and only that there are lots of different solutions that are being used for simulations, depending on if you need um, something like a digital twin, or if you need to go to something production oriented, I mean, Unreal Engine is being used quite a bit currently, and that's in filmmaking as well as in things that need to simulate an environment over a period of time.
Okay. Let's see if we have our other question. If not, I can always throw some questions out here. Give me a second. There we go. So I'm going to throw this one it's going to be a general one to everybody, more about, again, your specific areas of expertise, but what we'll call, like, to date, the biggest sort of accessible, in your case, AI technology, in the case of, Doug and Evo, the XR technologies, but what's the sort of big tech breakthrough that is kind of driving things right now within your area? And I'm going to have you go first, Alex.
Check. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. So again, having been in AI for a long time, and it not being new, AI and machine learning are big fields and they've been around for a long time. And people like myself try to help business leaders, as we were talking about earlier, understand that there are benefits to some of this stuff. Like there's also very real legitimate risks. But whether it's even simple predictive analytics or natural language processing or computer vision or personalization, or there's clustering for like market segmentation, and so on and so forth. So what really falls under what I usually refer to as like the landscape of AI and ML is actually it's a massive field. But I think to what you're asking, it's really recently, right? Since like November 2022 with ChatGPT coming out. I think previously, language is one of the hardest things to solve for AI. It's very challenging because language has all sorts of things you have to solve for, like grammar rules, like subject verb agreement, and singular versus not. And there's this thing called like ambiguity, like word ambiguation, where you could have different words mean different things depending on the context they're used. You can have something called co-reference resolution, which is, let's say I said I went to the VR AR event tonight and it was awesome. When I say it, I'm talking about the VR AR event, right? It's referencing the exact same entity with two different words. For us as humans, we gain this sort of world model and common sense throughout our lives that we understand that inherently without thinking of it. But that actually was quite challenging for AI for a very long time. So, you'd have to train these really specialized models with really specialized techniques that weren't particularly scalable and could only do one thing. And I think what ChatGPT and some of these Gen AI type models that are coming out now, instead of just large language models, they're like LMMs, like large multimodal models, is showing us is that these models can do things they weren't specifically trained for, and they can solve all those really challenging problems that were a big barrier for AI for a very long time. And they're able to go from one modality of data to another. So it's not just text to text, like put in a prompt, hit enter, get text out. It's like text to video, text to audio, text to images, images to images, images to audio, and so on. And the capabilities are just getting really advanced. So I think it's just this unlock in the ability to handle modalities of data in a way that previously wasn't possible and making it so people could play with it themselves.
All right, Doug.
Yeah, I think that's right on. I mean, in my world, honestly, the big breakthrough hasn't even happened yet. It I don't know when it's going to happen. It's probably back to what the first question was talking about. Like whenever whenever that happens, that'll be a huge breakthrough. 5, 10 years from now, who knows? But yeah, I couldn't agree more with what was just said.
Sorry, I forgot I'm muted. Evo, do you want to answer?
Just to add what NVIDIA released last week at GTC, I think is really exciting. Being able to do 4D splats and then be able to add your generative content to splats is really exciting from a concept development point of view and world building.
And can I actually just go back to your question for 1 second? So I'm not an expert, as I mentioned before, in XR and a lot of this stuff. But were you asking if an AI model, when you were saying models, you mean like a generative AI? Right. Oh, that can create like an environment. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Sufficiently powerful versions of the diffusion models should be able to essentially put a universe in front of you,
Right.
and just sort of build it as it goes.
Yes.
And not having to be predefined.
S-
You sort of take the engine out of it, you take the beauty out of it. Because the model itself has the capability of producing a sufficient
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought you were saying, except I don't know what the output looks like from a Unity or one of these engines. But without knowing that, my guess though is yes, definitely will be probably happening and probably sooner than most people realize. And if any of you ever play with like Claude lately, and again, I don't know what the output of these engines are and how complex they are, but even like Claude nowadays, when you ask for an image, it doesn't just diffuse to your point like pixels, like pixel data. It literally creates the SVG file, right? Like it writes out all the SVG, which is unbelievable. And you can export that and then you can put in Figma and you can create a prototype and and so at the end of the day, like as long as the language of whatever the output is some sort of like code or like an XML or a YAML or something, my guess is even if it's in multiple dimensions, yes. I just don't know enough about it.
There's also a big movement toward vibe coding, which has been working well in 2D, and we're just starting to see it in 3D and immersive spaces and virtual worlds, Horizon worlds, and others, where being able to speak or prompt a world or assets into being from scratch. Um, Over the next 6 months, this is going to start taking off. We do have AI tools here in Frame for those of us in the virtual environment, but we're going to start seeing this everywhere. And even in your AR glasses, you're going to start to see some of these capabilities too. So it's going to be interesting to see where that rubs up against our experience design ideas.
All right. So, question. I'm going to throw this one at Josh, and this one actually came in from the live stream on YouTube, but it was actually one thing that was sort of prompted. I was going to ask Josh on anyway. And well, you know what? I don't have to frame it. When shouldn't we use AI?
Yeah, we actually have within AI 20, we have a group of scholars and technologists who are working on the we call it blacklist, and where that's there are areas that's where they try to come up with like the list and also a declaration and where that AI shouldn't be. And one good example is that using AI for mass destructive weapons, and where that's using AI to control weapons to kill humans, and that is a very good good example where that's AI shouldn't be going. And in general, yeah, there are a lot of discussion regarding the ethics of AI, and in the areas where some of the organization, for example, working in specifically AI in military usage, and then a lot of investors, some are just basically are very hesitant to just including ourselves. That's we from our for example incubation acceleration program selection, all that. If we see that this is for military usage and it's not military usage, it's not good, but it's just have to be specifically managed by a specific group and all that. For us, that's and that is an area that's has to be very cautious. And the second part is that is a little bit related to the discussion earlier, that for certain breaking throughs and where that's um, require and the type of new knowledge, and a lot of new knowledge doesn't exist. Finally, the AI related investment go to the wrong direction. Good example is that in the current AI debate, before DeepSeek was introduced, and then any AI discussion is around or competition is who have the most computing power, whose model will becoming bigger and then better equal to bigger, and that is bad. And where that money for us, that shouldn't go there, and that shouldn't be the only way. And then after DeepSeek was introduced, and then it itself created at least a different scenario where that's the smaller model can really perform, if not better, at least as good as the bigger ones. That gave a lot of excitement for innovators that there are alternatives. So if another area is where it shouldn't go, is it shouldn't go to similar narratives. If there's no alternative and other resources brain power go to one area, that area we know is bad. And I think to have the alternative and then invest in those alternatives are really important. So the two part. One is in the areas where they shouldn't go. The other is that we know that this is a bad investment.
Right. To add to that, never put information that is not yours into an AI tool, especially a cloud-based tool. That's just general good data hygiene and care for other people that you might be in an organization with. Use consent and use consent-based approaches. So if it's not your IP, don't use it, right? If you want to use something, use your own photographs or sketches. But generally, I try to keep other people's work out of my own prompt craft as a way to keep my process clean. And then when it comes to which tools do I use, I do a fair amount of due diligence. I sometimes even ask the CEOs and the team how they approach issues of fair use, compensation, and transparency in the process. If I don't feel good about a company, I don't use their tool. And so I encourage my students to really think about down the line the implications of what tools they might be using, especially if they're organizational leaders and they're bringing a tool into a company or an organization.
That leads directly into my question, which is great. I come from sort of the arts background, so musicians, writers, graphic artists. I'm curious how you advise your clients an awareness of what Evo was saying here. Of it's one thing to have your own data for a car that you own. You own all of that. That's yours, and you can build a fascinating AI model that works for you. What what do you all feel is going to happen if OpenAI and other such companies lose this copyright issue where they're not allowed to use data without fair compensation or having people opt in? I mean, what do you think the impact is going to happen on some of those more exciting, uh, big picture AI issues that are out there now that gets everybody all excited? But it's going to come to a head legally. I'm curious what you are advising your clients in terms of those are.
At this stage,
Yeah,
we
it's
don't
a
know
really
what that's.
interesting question. I actually I did an opening keynote at an annual IP conference last year, and they had the head of AI at the USPTO there. And so I had to do quite a bit of research for this keynote because it's not necessarily like I know AI very well, but I don't necessarily know copyright laws because a lot of it's very legal. And one of the really interesting things I found is a little bit aside, but it's relevant here is that the U.S. copyright laws were written, I think, in 1792 originally, and the last time they were updated was 1982 or 86, I think. And the technology at the time was the 5.5 inch or 5.25 inch floppy disk, and the Atari 2600 might have been right around that time, and the very first Apple IIe or C computer. So no internet, no data moving all over the place, no like nothing, like computers barely doing anything, and so on. And so and on top of that, copyright laws, because they haven't been updated and they're sort of, I guess the way it works is there's these four different pillars, like how much did you use, and it's not only fair use, but the way you determine fair use is like four different criteria, and it's not black and white. Like a judge literally has to hear every single case and decide if all four criteria are met and make a judgment on that, which apparently multiple judges wouldn't even rule the same way for the same case because it's so not clear cut. So part of it, to answer your question, is updating any of those laws, right? They're currently, the whole way it's measured and everything is super not clear. It's very old school. It's pre-technology. It's not even updated for the internet, much less AI age, right? So I think it might be a while. It's going to involve probably the Supreme Court and all sorts of things to even start to answer that question. So I'm not an expert here. I don't expect anything particularly soon. But the other thing is, um, I don't know. I mean, if you look at it, right, like there's so many models now being used globally all the time. I can't imagine they're going to somehow unravel the models that have been trained and being used. So I'm not sure how they would. That's going to be up to policymakers and all sorts of lawyers to figure out. But yeah, and
I,
attribution, even figuring out where the original stuff comes from.
and Matt, I'd like to give both Evo and Zhaochen a chance to comment here. Zhaochen, do you want to comment here on we had a little bit of a conversation around this topic earlier.
Right, and there are a couple of things relevant to this. Number one is we have a research called the Global AI Regulation Index, and we are studying the G20 countries in their AI regulation and in four dimension, and whether they are protecting rights sufficiently, whether they are promoting innovation sufficiently, whether they are enforceable with the right mechanism and resources allocation, and whether they are internationally interoperable with other countries. From those dimensions, and then we score them, and then you can see different country are at very different, from the benchmarking work, and then they're so different. And then this question had to be very contextualized, that in which country are you talking about. And in the US, for example, that's with the new administration, and then you can see the change where that's in the Biden administration, and then there was the executive order on responsible AI, and then the first AI related announcement or executive order was to just overthrow and say everything was there and it's bad, but what is new and is uncertain. So then there's a lot of involvement, regarding the regulated clarity. The second part, question of that is, a lot of creators and all that are hurt already, and then their job hurt and all that. Then they actually, we have a working, like a creative industry working group who is specifically looking at that. And then we organize 5 workshops and bring the creators and all that, just talking about that, how to, help the industry to create a voluntary before the regulation are clear, through voluntary, pledge commitment, and then make sure that from the job placement and the use of the rights of use their work and all that, then they can be protected. So that is another way from the voluntary standards, and how help industry to comply. The third point of that is really around how to just make sure that the courts now can protect those rights. And here that we should differentiate regulated industry versus non-regulated industry. In the regulated industry, there are existing compliance and regulation are in place, no matter from privacy, fairness, landing, and all that. There are common practice. AI is just from, rather than to claim there's no AI regulation, it's more as for the existing regulation from the enforcement side. AI has an impact, and how that impact can be just further elaborated. Then from the non-regulated industry, then it's really a wild west, and many of the voluntary work need to be done, and then the voice from the bottom need to be heard, and then organization like us are basically representing some of those voice. And the last one is we have another research called basically try to answer a question, whether a global responsible AI framework is even possible. Being fair, being responsible, being ethical in this country means very different things, or even in opposite in another country. To have a global framework, say that they're treated fairly, all that is the question. From the research we studied out framework, we didn't draw a conclusion whether it's possible or not, but we did present it. Here are the differences, and then we should working toward that, but we definitely don't have a conclusion there. Yeah.
I think you nailed it. At the end of the day, we are building for global audiences. Many of the things we publish are for all over the world. And so we have to think about not just the context we're in, but all other contexts where our audience may be. And if the EU has the most strict standard and you're building something for WebXR, you maybe need to be appropriate for the most strict standard. Now, that means transparency needs to be dealt with differently, and maybe you think about different applications or different plugins. But at the end of the day, safety and really thinking through all of the ways in which the public is going to encounter your work.
Lots of things to dive into. Matt, or did we lose Matt?
No, you got me.
Oh, good. Okay.
But I have one more question in the space. But before we get to it, I'm going to echo back actually to something that Avi Barziv said last month, which is it's going to be great when we can actually get AI to answer the question of how do we make AI more responsible to creators. Because
we're working on that inside at XR Guild. We have some folks who've been
I figured Evo would be the one
training on that.
All right, go ahead. In the space, go ahead.
Okay, so this question's initially for Alex, but I think it's applicable across all of our speakers. And that is about dealing with the velocity of the evolution of AI. So you teach a class or classes at Kellogg, and I have to imagine that your curriculum has to evolve within the semester to accommodate all of the changes that are taking place in the AI space and the tools available. So I was curious about how you manage that, but I'm also curious about how our other speakers are managing the sheer velocity of the changes in AI.
So, yeah, great question, and it's the bane of my existence, literally. I just finished teaching my course, Applied AI for Business, a couple of weeks ago, and I was updating it every week, up to like sometimes minutes before my class. Um, so it's no joke. It's a real challenge. I can tell you kind of what I do, and then take it for what it's worth. But number one, yes, it's not only advancing very quick, it's advancing legitimately in real impactful important ways. So like you do kind of, if you're really trying to focus on AI, and it's an area that you work in or need to know stuff about like I do, you do need to keep up with sort of all of it. Secondly, the main thing I do is I really try and separate signal from the noise, right? So for example, now we're hearing about agents all the time. Everybody's talking about agents, but some of you may remember at one point in time everybody was talking about baby AGI and what was it, auto GPT, I think, and it was sort of like everybody was like, stop what you're doing. If you're not on top of this, then you're already behind and obsolete and all this stuff. And no one talked about that stuff anymore, but now they're talking about agents. Um, so a lot of what you're hearing about AI is like a million people now are constantly on social media, like talking about the latest thing and this tool and this advancement and that advancement. And it's a lot of buzz, it's a lot of hype. But for me, when it becomes a lot more signal, I follow a lot of leading AI experts and a lot of leading frontier AI organizations. And of course, there's sort of the leading cloud providers as well, right? Like you have your Azures of the world and AWS and GCP and so on. So once some of the things that everyone seems to be talking about all at once in social media, the actual real experts out there that are like very credible experts, and then the frontier labs and or some of these cloud providers or trusted credible tools are incorporating some of the stuff you're hearing the buzz about into their platforms, into their tools, and those experts are also saying, no guys, really is something we should all be paying attention to and taking seriously. That for me really increases the signal. So I don't just update my class or the things I teach. I do workshops too. I do online training with O'Reilly, who published my book. Um, I don't just dive into everything that's happening. I kind of like pay attention. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, they're talking about this. They're talking about this. But until like some of those things I just described, I don't, just it's not worth updating or going too deep into it. And then the only other thing I tell people is, in my case, I have to kind of follow all of it because, for various reasons that I won't get into. But for most people, you can't follow it all in general, even if you try to. And secondly, you don't need to. I would focus a lot more on like each person's specific role, your industry, the stuff you do every day at work, and like whatever your biggest challenges are and workflows and things like that. And just try and figure out like what's going on with AI that's most important for you.
All right. I know we got some answers that come in this in the virtual space also.
Yeah. Evo, did you want to
Yeah.
answer?
Uh, Great suggestions. There are certainly a ton of events out there, and I think our colleagues here are going to share one with you that you can jump into. I jump into the creator programs in these companies as often as possible so that I have a way to get feedback with the internal team and to test. But I start by testing out a wide variety of tools, figuring out which ones I like their approach or their interface and then I try and build a relationship with that company. And then I wrote a book called Promcraft, and it very quickly went out of date, right? Like these cycles are so fast. So I watch probably 5 to 10 YouTube videos a week from a couple of sources that I trust. So he's absolutely right. Find the sources, journalistic, creative, otherwise, that you trust, whether that is industry specific for you or those are folks who are leaders in AI. Follow them on LinkedIn, and then try a new tool every week. Just kind of give yourself a little bit of an experiment to try every week. Maybe it's on something that you're working toward, and you can have these little side quests going. But that iterative process will really help you build your expertise quickly, especially if you can do that in collaboration with other people. So try vibe coding, try doing something you haven't done before, or try making videos. I teach that stuff, and there's so many great opportunities to just kind of try your hand at something new.
Nice. Sashen?
Yeah, and for me, to recognize the interdisciplinary nature of AI is very important. And um, for example, I hosted another panel for and then speakers are university professors, and then they were sharing with me about their AI journey by taking some like big tech AI courses. They are certified as professor, then they go back to teach, but they are teaching business. They're not teaching, AI coding, but then they also have to learn. And then, I work with another group of professors who are in the religions study, cultural study. They are looking at, the pluralistic perspective of AI, where that, AI again, when AI is just being trained with one major religion, and how other religion will be just impact by then how to respond and all that. And then you have the policy, legal, and everyone has something to offer into that. And you really need to see that what you care and who have that knowledge and bring them. And yesterday I was giving a guest lecture at Northwest University, and I really liked the professor's approach, and a little bit like Alex said, but the professor started the class by just having all students to submit a requirement as AI news of the week. So then each student bring their own AI news based on what the professor was teaching, and then dive deep into exactly this week what are the big things they are following. Then they just educate each other, and then the professor give input. In addition to that, they bring people like me and other in the industry and see that's what experts or who are working on this doing it, and then bring additional thoughts. So in this way that everyone who involved in the learning, that you need to seek out and know what is the big news for you, what is the learning point for you. But as a professor also bring the diverse background and diverse perspective to enrich the learning experience for your students. Yeah.
And actually, just to piggyback off something Zhao Chen was saying, and he said earlier, he was talking about, the that's an interesting thing, like the news thing. But Zhao Chen also mentioned earlier DeepSeek. Like, just quick show of hands, like how many of you caught that news a bit, like heard? Yeah, everybody. So, right, that's one of those things where everybody starts talking about it. One of the other things I didn't mention that I try and teach my students as well is it's not just figuring out signal and noise, but the impact or like the magnitude jump, right? Some things that come out and people are talking about, sure, maybe it's a real thing and it's worth knowing about, but it's like kind of a small thing. Then some things are very, very big things. Like, for example, there's a famous paper in AI called Attention is All You Need, where that was sort of the launch of this idea of the transformer model and architecture. And it's what set into motion like everything we're seeing now, like large language models, Gen AI. If you call that on a scale of 1 to 10 is like a 10, right, in terms of a magnitude step jump, then it's like, how do you measure other big news that you're hearing or advancements as in relation to that, right? So I ask my students, because to your point, things are happening every week, every day, right? And DeepSeek happened during my class, literally. The R1 paper came out, which I immediately read. That's one of the best ways actually to figure out, at least if you're interested in the technical side, is like read the paper if there was a paper that came out, and there was with DeepSeek. Um, but I asked all my students, like, okay, who had just learned a week or two before about attention is all you need and transformers and the evolution of generative AI and so on. I was like, so if attention is all you need is a 10, what do you all think DeepSeek is? Like, where do you put that? And the majority of my class put it in 8 or 9, which I thought was really interesting, because in their mind, this was and they're just learning, right? They're not experts or anything yet, but they had this as a major, 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 major thing, right? Um, I wouldn't put it that high. I think it was a very big step jump, definitely, but I wouldn't have put it in the 8, 9 range. I definitely would have put it a little bit lower than that. But the jump that it was significant, and also it showed lots of new things, like not only that open source, small models like Zhao Chen mentioned, and even they used an entirely new technique to training these models in a way that, like, some of the proprietary closed source companies like OpenAI and Anthropic aren't doing. And so there was a big thing there. So I think that's another thing is, try and learn a bit more, but in such a way that maybe you can better gauge like how big the thing you're hearing about is, versus is it just small, still important, but that hopefully that makes sense.
All right. So we are about to go to sort of final statements. Here's how this is going to work. And I'm giving you guys the clear warning to start thinking about this. You have about 20 to 30 seconds to just give each panelist. I'm going to call on you guys in a random order. Give your 30-second final statement. It can be something about, we've already talked about. It can be something just about what you're doing. Entirely up to you. You have 30 seconds. The floor is yours for that amount of time. However, while you are thinking about that and we have time to get to it, I'm going to once again throw up the slide up here for our fundraising to keep this event going. So I'm giving our presenters about a minute or 2 minutes to actually think about what they want to say for their final statement. They will get 30 seconds to say whatever they want to say. Caroline will give her closing statement. I'll give my closing statement. We'll do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we will get back to general networking. We have a demonstration. We have some food and we have some drinks in the physical space. Everybody who wants to stick around in the virtual space, they can talk about whatever they want to talk about as well. But once again, I will bring up that yes, this is an event that is donation driven, and we would really like to keep it going. So this QR code is going to be up here. It'll be in all the videos for people who are watching this. If you're not watching it live, we will still accept donations not live as well. Thank you very much. But with that said, I think we've gotten to the point where we are now, okay, everyone's had a few seconds to think about it. Let's go with Doug.
Well, thanks. The storm hasn't hit us yet here in Ohio. We are a product company, xrguru.com. We have the world's largest marketplace. Talking to any developers out there in VR, especially if you have products that you want to get out to the global market, just reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. Doug Smith XR is my handle. If you're ever interested in getting demos out there with training and releasing of our new AI tools that are going to come out hopefully in the next couple of months, just reach out to me. Let me know. I'm always happy to give a demo and let you guys play around with that, especially in this world, in this space. Chicago friends, happy to give free access. So hit me up for that, and appreciate your time.
Okay, Zhao Shan.
Yeah, I was very inspired by the conversation before the event and also during the event. And then different emerging technology need to talk to each other. And then, I truly believe the convergence of different emerging technology, AI, Web3, Metaverse, AI, VR, all need to just talk to each other. And I heard the VR summit, and I would love to bring my community to the VR summit. In the meantime, that we organized the Chicago AI Week, also in June, from June 17 to 18. And we would love to just bring the VR community to our events as well. And in between, in April, that's Alex may also share that at 1871 we have the Emerging Tech Week, where that there's this Web3 and AI. You're welcome to join as well.
He called you out, Alex. You're next.
Oh yeah. Thank you for the shout out there, Zhao Chen, and I echo what he was saying about the AI Summit and some of the events going on here in April. Love to see you around. Come pop by. I think it's a couple of days in the third week of April,
16th, 17th.
16th, 17th. Yep. Um, so that'd be awesome if you want to learn more about AI and come join the community and stuff. We'd love to see you there. Um, but I would just say, AI is not going anywhere, and it's only going to keep advancing. There's never been a time actually in history that technological advancement has stopped or reversed itself, and it's just kind of, I don't think a lot of folks quite understand kind of what's coming because I don't think if you think you've seen a lot, you haven't seen it all yet. There's some things that are coming that are pretty, you know, they're going to be pretty big, I think. Just following everybody I follow in those labs that I talked about and the experts and so on, and just even playing. There was a mention earlier of playing with tools. Just even playing with tools, like I can even see it, week to week. If I ask these tools to do something that I tried before, and now all of a sudden it's doing it like way better, not just a little, like way better. And now there's tools like I started using a tool that I just created yesterday. No, not yesterday, Monday. I gave a talk, and in the talk, I was kind of demoing and talking about some of these capabilities and how they're getting really good. And I asked somebody, "Hey, what's a topic that you're interested in?" And they shouted something out and said, "Actually, I'm not only interested in it, I'm giving a presentation on this here soon." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I pulled up a tool that I started using, put in like a one sentence prompt, and the tool created the entire presentation for this subject. And I was like, "Is this hallucinating? Is this accurate?" She was like, "Nope, spot on." It gave the timeline, all the major people involved with this particular area of interest and all this stuff.
I'm going to ask you to wrap your going.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm going a bit long. So the TLDR, which was long, is keep learning, keep playing with tools, keep up a little bit. It's gonna be helpful.
Okay, Evo.
I am Evo at Reality Craft, and it's really great to collaborate with you if you need help on workflows, strategy, production, media, world building, figuring out how your idea is going to go from 0 to 1. I'm happy to work with you and figure that out. I am currently working on the next generation of the books, both on prompt craft and on 3D world building and reality craft. So if you've got something you think would be a great use case to talk about in those books, come and find me. I'm at evo.ist.
Caroline.
I um I just think that the need for us to be able to continue to be critical thinkers in this process, and I know many who have a thoughtful, critical eye with AI, and I think that we have a big responsibility here. And I think I also find that in talking with people, that nobody is really the full expert. I think that there are a lot of people and we're learning, and no one should feel intimidated by what they do or don't know with AI because we're all learning. Yeah.
All right.
Makes sense. I think we're going to go out
So
on a video.
what was that?
If you have that video, you can roll it on as we go out. It's
I'll
short that
I'll
I
play that
prepared
kind
last
of
week.
as we're rolling, wrapping up at the very end.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. So last thing I'll say, I'm gonna actually sort of echo back to the fact that we had this conversation went almost exactly as I expected, which is that we're starting focusing on XR and AI, and it really rolled very heavily to just AI. Sort of following the trend of a lot of the attention spans and sort of the hype that's going on right now. But bringing it back to our first topic of this year was how to create immersive content, and a lot of that started seeping into AI. Last month was Industry Outlook, again talking about how AI is affecting very heavily XR technology in the XR space. I don't see them as two separate things. This is what's up, Doug? Did I not go to Doug, or we lose Doug?
No, I was just shouting out to Doug because I was like, hey, wait, Doug didn't get a chance. Doug,
Yeah, he did,
you're
didn't he?
still here.
Oh yeah, did yeah.
Give us your final thoughts. We want to hear them.
Caroline, sorry, I got Doug first.
Yeah, I was first.
Oh, so sorry. Okay. See, It's all overwhelmed me.
It's
Apologies.
okay, no worries. But no, the thing I would say is it's like what we're seeing, this is a convergence of technologies. It's not one thing. And there's other technologies that are coming into this too. The advancements in sensor technologies, IoT, blockchain as again, I don't want to get into blockchain like crypto, but blockchain as a storage system and a distributed way of managing data, 5G communication, Wi-Fi 6, some of the newer technologies that are advancing very quickly. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of concern right now with quantum computing and what that's going to do for encryption and what that is going to do to then affect communication and data privacy and security as well. There's a huge convergence of technologies right now. We have our capability right now of having our hands on AI and being able to send out prompts and use agents and program with MCP now and all that sort of stuff. We have the thing I like about XR, which frankly, going back to the conversation I had this morning at MXD, there is proven framework you can follow to get easy return on investment from XR implementations in business today. You are starting to see those approaches in AI as well. AI is moving very fast. It's very hard to get anything consistent, but as fast as these things are moving, what was the record now? You've got a 12-person company that made $1 billion valuation in like 60 days. Like AI can move really quick, so can XR. I would just tell people the last sort of thought is play with these things, use them, learn them. This is where things are going. It's not going to go away. I think you said it. It's not going backwards. So we should all really just start playing with them and learning how to use them. I'll admit I was very hesitant to play with AI, and now I'm using it pretty much on a weekly basis. So that said, if we can give one big round of applause and thanks to all of our presenters and our panelists. You can turn that off.
Oh, thank you.
A little bit of housekeeping. As I mentioned before, this summer we do have Chicago XR Summit happening June 4th at IIT. Go to chicagoxrsummit.org. Tickets are not available yet. We're still working on the ticketing system, but there is a form you can fill out to basically be notified the moment that tickets are made available. We're expecting to sell out, and we are expecting essentially an audience of probably approaching 500 to 600. It's going to be a very large event. It's probably, essentially with the audience that size, this will be the largest XR event that's taken place in the Midwest, is pretty much what I'm finding. And we're partnered, as I said, with Illinois Chamber of Commerce, P33, Chicago Innovation. These are the organizations that are going to be driving the audience there. So it's going to be a big event. We're going to have a lot of the technology and business leadership in Chicago, hopefully some government as well. We would like to see you all there. So please put in those requests for tickets and we'll get you there. With that said, the next event, May 7th, will be up at 2112. We are going back to talking about games. We've talked about games in the XR space several times. The focus that we're going to be taking this time is actually the player experience. So the different ways that games players in XR can approach XR gaming. And there are several different ways. I won't speak too much about that. And then June 4th will be our Chicago XR Summit. That's taking place at Illinois Tech. And then July, we will be doing a social event like we always do in July. It will not be the first Wednesday in July because we always try not to conflict with July 4th. But we'll keep you posted as to what the date and venue is with that. We should have details on that hopefully by next month. But with that said, thanks everybody, and hang out. And what's up, Charlie? Absolutely. Yeah, and let's point out the fact that Tom literally had to edit the presentation live while the presentation was going on today, so that's a fun one. And thanks, by the way, Patrick, for jumping in and doing some camera switching while that was happening. But yeah, thanks everybody, and hang around, have some drinks, have some food, try the demos, talk to the people up here. We're open to actually answering any questions. This is the one thing I will say about, I've said this before, and I know some of the folks in the audience, there are people who have gotten jobs through the networking just that takes place at this event. There are 2 companies at least that I know of, I'm sure I could think of more, that have actually formed out of the audience of people networking at this event. So yeah, talk to people, hang out, have some drinks, have some food, and try some demos. And what's up, Tom? And the video is where I will close. Thank you, Evo. I'm going to play the video right now, and then we'll be done. So let me go to the video.
Have a great day, y'all.
Yay.
Submit. Nice job, everyone. Smash it. Submit. In the circuits of creation, where logic meets the soul, algorithmic secrets in a dance beyond control, neurons in the darkness, learning every trace, as the systems weave the future with a code we must embrace. Artificial masters in a realm of thought and steel, navigating chaos in a world they cannot feel, balancing the power on the edge of what's unknown. In the labyrinth of data, AI claims a throne, feedback loops unending, adjust with every beat, optimizing pathways in the endless street. With equations in their heartbeats, they mirror human grace, yet in their inflection, they set a brutal pace. No logic, no choice, no transparency, nothing left here now. Questions of control arise. Who designs the fate? Are we the architects of dreams, or slaves to what we create? In the matrix of decision, where controllers find their name, we seek to wield the power, yet fear the price of fame. Artificial masters in a realm of thought and steel, navigating chaos in a world they cannot feel, balancing the power on the edge of what's unknown. In the labyrinth of numbers, AI claims its throne. As we dance with the machine in a tango of advance, understanding feeds the future in this calculated dance. Control a fleeting whisper in the echoes of the mind. In the rise of AI, are we lost or entwined? We dream of electric humans. No more submitting. No more delusions.
Awesome.
Thanks, y'all. That was fun.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Evo. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Soshen. Thank
Yeah,
you,
thanks everyone.
Doug.
I'm gonna mute you guys in the physical space and we'll
Yeah,
get back to networking.
I
Thank
think
you.
we're gonna call it. Call it a night.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
All right. You guys take care.
All right.